In this video, I'm going to show you how I use the HX Stomp as a DI box and show you how to use two different parallel chains to the front of house. Hey guys, I'm Tyler. Thank you for tuning back into the channel once again. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm back with another Helix video. It's been a long time since I've done any Helix videos, but I think the ones I have done have gone down really well and I really deserve to be doing a lot more of these. I've also got this snazzy new overhead shot and I think it will really help with the quality of the production of these videos and making everything super clear. One thing I like to do in my Helix videos is to actually use the devices themselves. I'm not really a fan of interacting with software as my way of changing tones, changing settings. I really like that pedal feel of turning knobs and adjusting things on the pedal, that real hardware response. I like that when I'm crafting a tone and doing anything musical. It feels much more organic and natural to me. So all of my videos are going to be like this with overhead. I'm going to do HX Stomp videos and Helix floor videos. So expect more of these over the next year. So if you are interested in seeing these videos or want a hand with anything, if you've got questions on the Helix, you want something answered, then please do leave it in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram, which I'll also link below right now. This is a response to a question that I got about using the HX Stomp as a DI box, and I do use it as a DI pretty much, and I think in many ways it can be your front of house on stage DI box, as well as being a perfect tool to get two different chains in the studio. You bring one box, you've got two different sounds, and that's all you need for a mix. And I think I'm going to just show you how I do that right here, right now with the HX Stomp. So let's get into this right now by just turning on the HX Stomp. There you can see I'm on version 3.01, so the latest version with the update for any bug fixes that were, I think there were a couple of bug fixes happening or needed to be done for version 3. So there we have the HX Stomp. Now first of all, I'm going to talk about the DI functionality. The HX Stomp isn't specifically a DI box, and I wouldn't treat it as specifically just a DI box. There are a couple of things I would do or make sure of when you are using the HX Stomp like this. But this I'm going to give now is, if you're on a pretty big stage, which is the type of gig that I've played with the HX Stomp, say a gig in a different country, you're not really too fussed about amp sound on stage. You want to have a really good monitor sound and be able to hear yourself up front. I've had this before when I'm singing and I need to be really tied to the monitor up at the front of stage, so I've got monitors around me and I need to hear clearly the bass and what I'm singing, and the amp is, to be honest, so far behind me that I can't really hear it anyway. So this is the kind of setting that I would use for that situation, but it can also be adapted, and I'll show you how you can adapt that too for if you want to send it to an amplifier as well. So the first thing you're going to need is one of these. So this is a jack to XLR adapter. As you can see there, that's the XLR end, this is the jack end, and it's a balanced jack, so that should be perfectly running with your XLR cables from the front of house. So instead of needing a DI box, you take one of these and plug that straight into the back of the HX Stomp, and then the XLR from the front of house goes into this. Now the one thing I would say about when you're using these is make sure that you don't have phantom power turned on, so tell the front of house engineers to turn phantom power off. I've not ever had any problems with it. I don't think it is a big issue, and I think there probably have been times where I've had phantom power running into this and it's not been a problem, but I just suggest that it's best for noise and for the health of the HX Stomp just to keep it off. So if there's a choice and you can say to the front of house engineer, just don't take any phantom power, don't put any phantom power through these to your channels, then I'd advise that you do that. With this setup, you can either use one of these or you can use two of them and use both of the outputs. And I'm going to show you a version of both and just different ways of doing it. This example, instead of using those adapters, exactly the same principle, but I'm just going to use these two jack to XLR cables just because it looks a bit neater on my desk and saves me having to get another two XLR cables out when these were just lying around. So what I'm going to do now is to make this signal chain. It's going to have a clean side to it, so a mic pre side which you can send out of one of the outputs, and then an amp sound as well, both from the one HX Stomp box. So first things first, I'm going to put in a tube preamp block. So come down to preamp. This is just a mic pre, which I think adds a little bit of something to the sound, more than the typical clean Helix level. And I'm also gonna, for the sake of this example, also put in a gain block, just so that we can level match, and I can just show you the difference in tone between having the tube pre and not having it. So just to and assign it to 1 foot switch. So I'm going to turn the gain block off and then assign it to this middle foot switch, and then go along to the studio tube pre and then also assign that. So I've set the levels pretty much equivalent. I'm just going to show you the different sounds between the two. So the tube pre, I've turned the level all the way up to 10, and then on the gain block, to roughly balance that out, I've put it to 7 dB. So here's clean with just that gain block. And then here's it with the tube pre instead. So a little bit gainier, a little bit warmer than just the clean signal, and I really like that. So that's going to be the setting for one channel. What I'm now going to do is to go to the next block and then choose to put in there an amplifier. We'll keep it simple for bass. I'm going to choose the Ampeg SVT. But I do this a lot in the studio setting. When I'm recording, I always have one amp that's kind of a dirty amp and one as a clean signal. So this is really a studio channel that you can take out to live and run like it's that kind of a setting. What I'm going to do is click action on this block, switch the path to path B, and then going to just leave it there and assign that. Next move I'm going to take is to move the split. So the split is going to be ahead of the tube pre. So I'm going to choose action and then just drag it back. So I want it to be pretty much right at the start of my chain. It now has the choice to change the balance. So the split at the minute is absolutely fine to have both of them running down the center because it's going to get equal signal to each of those paths. We then want to take this top channel, which is A, and put it to the left. So that will only put the left output. So that will just come out of the left jack. And then we want to keep the B level the same, but go along a page and move that to the right. So we now have the amp signal from down here going to the right output, so this output here, and the clean or mic pre setup going straight out to the left jack here. There's also in this mix the option to change levels, so if you have a patch on one parallel chain that is a lot louder than the other, you can also level them here. It depends where you want to do it. You can do it in the amps block or in anything that has gain before that, but if last resort is needed, you can do it here on the mixer. So now let's give this a listen. You should have the clean in your left side and the amp sound in your right side. The idea now is that the front of house or studio has a clean signal, completely clean, and a completely amp sound signal as well. And now what we can do is to do some parallel processing to get the best out of both, really. One of the things I really like to do in the studio is to take the low end out of the amp sound. So just have the clean sound with all the bottom end and have the amp sound without the very bottom. So maybe filter it up to 100 hertz. So I'm going to do that right now. So low cut, I'm going to bring up to 100 hertz. That just cleans it up a little bit and I think helps define the lows. So you've only got lows coming from one place. So this is what that sounds like. Next, I'm going to tweak the amp. So I'm going to change the microphone to a dynamic 20. The 47 mics are really lovely, warm, total sounds. But since I don't really want as much of that bottom end, which is really what's great about a 47 style mic. So I'm going to switch to a dynamic mic, the RE20, the dynamic 20 model in this. And I'm going to also put the distance back a little bit. So we're now kind of 3 inches away from the cabinet. I just prefer my sounds a little bit further back from the cabinet in general. That will bring the volume down a little bit, but I think I prefer the overall tone and we'll get more mid-range and less low end. Just in order to compensate for that low end, I'll just come along to the cab level block and just turn that up a little bit. So now we have the distorted tone there, the growly tone, the character tone is what I like to call it. And then next we're going to go back to the clean setting and the clean path, and I'm going to add a compressor in there. Just a mono compressor is absolutely fine. The LA Studio comp I think works quite well for this. And what I'm going to do with this is kind of treat it like a parallel compressor. The idea of this is really to compress the low end quite hard, so you've got very consistent low end, and then the dynamics are coming from the upper register, which is the part of the sound that is really audible more broadly. So in that way you have a dynamic sound coming from the amplifier, and you have this really solid clean low end coming from the clean channel. So what I'm going to do now is to turn the mix back a little bit. So we've got 70% compression, so it's a type of parallel compression, it's not entirely compressing that signal, and then turn the peak reduction right up. So this is that tone. So what you're getting there is a very solid clean bottom end combined with the dirtier amp sound. Because it's parallel compressed, it means that there are some original dynamics coming through from the clean sound as well, but you're also getting all those benefits of compression, so a lot of sustain and very consistent level on that channel. I think when you put this through a PA monitor, or you run it through any kind of FR and stand in front of it, it sounds really fat and really big, because that low end is just super consistent and doesn't give up. But you also get the definition of any attack from your fingers and any of those more dynamic sounds that you need to be able to hear yourself in a band mix. The last thing I'd do, maybe if this was for a slightly less gnarly situation, is just to come back to the SVT block and bring the drive level back down a little bit to maybe around 4. When you've got a clean sound and a dirty sound together, I think the dirty sound can be dirtier than you typically go for, because the clean sound in many ways cancels it out a little bit and just gives it a real nice balance. You're getting definition from the clean sound, but you're also getting the character and the saturation and things that make your bass tone very audible with the dirty bass amp channel. So I'm just going to turn the gain up again a little bit, so I'd probably turn the channel volume up in order to get the gain back that we've lost in the drive section. And then this is what that sounds like. So a slightly cleaner amp combined with that clean tone. So here's that slightly cleaner amp tone with the clean DI parallel compressed. So that's an example of how I would run the HX Stomp for 2 different sounds to send to the PA or front of house or a studio engineer. So there you see we've got the parallel clean tone, and we've also got the more saturated, more characterful amp tone, and each of those going out of a different channel. That gives the front of house an option to use the clean tone. If they need to blend in more solid low end, they can do that, or they can have more character and blend in the amp channel. The last thing I'm going to do is to show you how you can blend the two to send to an amp or an FR cabinet on stage. So here we go. This is what I do. I'm going to go to the block past the split. I'm going to click on here, and then I'm going to choose to send and return. And what we want to do is to potentially send a mono send, in which case you want to do send left, and then you want to plug a jack lead into the send here. So that means that the front of house is still going to get the same setup from these 2 channels, but you on stage have got your own level that you can control, and that's going to have both of those signals blended together. So hopefully that's given you an idea of one of the ways in which you can run the HX Stomp. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you been running a train like this? Are you doing a similar thing? Are you running your HX Stomp straight out to front of house or straight out to a studio desk? Or are you choosing to use a DI box in between? Let me know your experiences with that. And let me know in the comments if there's anything else you want to know or anything you want me to demo in these videos. They're going to be as regular as possible going through 2021. So do keep up the questions, and the more questions I get, the more likely I am to do more of these videos and the more ideas it will spark. So if you've got anything you want to ask or anything to say, please do leave that in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video and it's been helpful to you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell to keep updated with the latest videos, particularly these Helix videos. And don't forget to also head over to my Instagram and follow me there to keep up to date with more behind the scenes stuff and all the other sorts of bits and pieces that I'm up to. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.